So they make Subarus.
Oh.
So Subaru of Indiana, I ran their health and wellness center. So about 15,000 lives that I was the medical director for there if they wanted to use the primary care there. And we had about 6 of those 15,000 employees and family members who came to our center. Because it was free. It was primary care with a focus on, employers are self-insured typically. So they want to save cost. And so they hire somebody on site who follows evidence-based preventative approaches. We need to have this in the community, not just big employers who can afford it. Internal medicine, surgery, things like that. Preventive medicine is the field of medicine that covers like the CDC, all the things they talk about as preventive medicine. The lifestyle medicine is part of that college, and it's a new specialty. Like I said, I founded this in 2017. That was the first year. There was a board exam to become a certified lifestyle medicine. So I sat with 212 other doctors that first year from around the world. We now have over 4,000 around the world who are board certified in lifestyle medicine. So it's growing. But there's 6 areas, and what do we focus on? We focus on how do our behaviors impact our health, but beyond our health, what you guys are talking about this weekend, the same behaviors impact the environment. So we'll talk about that overlap a bit today, and then also talk about what we can do to not be too stuck and worried and enmeshed in what we're doing, because we need to learn how to detach ourselves at times and take care of ourselves. So there's 6 areas that we know people have the capability to change. There's things you can't change necessarily. You can't always change your built environment where you are at that moment, right? You can't change if you live in a society or an area without food access, then it can be difficult to have access to healthy food. But you can change like how you choose to approach your nutrition. Nutrition's a big part of it. Physical activity, and we're not going to dig too much into that, but nutrition we'll talk about a lot. And then stress coping skills, stress resiliency. Those are the 2 areas that are really important. I think will overlap with a lot of what you're studying, what I heard. I hear everybody talking about water safety, microbiome, global policy, global affairs. Food is huge, and it's less than 1% of Americans eat a nutritious diet. So for me, that's an easy one as a doctor. You walk through my door, we're going to talk about your nutrition. Occasionally I get somebody who's doing pretty well, but less than 2% of people get enough fiber in their diet, less than 2% get enough potassium, less than 2% get enough magnesium in their diet. American diet is a malnourished diet. Physical activity, pretty straightforward. Exercise, walk, garden, do things outside for an hour, 2.5 hours a week, and then do 2 days a week where you work all your muscles of your body, major muscles, arms, legs, core. That's an easy thing. About 30% of Americans do that. But it's pretty straightforward, and it isn't that you have to go and run. You don't have to bike. You can go in a farm like this and get your physical activity. Gardening is a physical activity. Walking down the road to go to the store instead of jumping in your car, that's a physical activity. Stress coping, we'll spend some time on mind-body medicine. That's going to be the most important. And then relationships. Do we have healthy relationships that are around us? Taking time for those. Your family, your loved ones, your friends. Not always just being stuck in your occupation. Fit your occupation into your life, not your life into your occupation. Sleep. We all get 8 hours sleep, right?
I try.
See, try. Good, good. So 8 hours of sleep, that, you know, I mean, that's something most adults don't do. But outside of that, it's 8 to 9 hours of sleep is what we should get each night. And then not abusing substances. Those are the 6 pillars that evidence has shown make the biggest impact on your health. Does that make sense? They're all changeable. We all have different risk factors for why we may. So we'll focus first on nutrition. What do you think is a healthy dietary pattern? Everybody's on a diet or dietary pattern, okay? I hate the word diet because diets fail. They don't work. You can't do something temporary and have a lifelong impact. You got to adopt a pattern that becomes your lifestyle. What do you think? Anybody heard of any healthy dietary patterns that people should follow?
Eat mostly plants.
Yeah, mostly plants. So, and should they be plants like processed plants? No. It's a whole food plant-based diet. So less processed and mostly plants. And that's from science. You know, if we want to survive as a species, we need to start to adopt these changes. The science is pretty strong about that. The reasons, right now, you can't see this great, I wish we had a bigger screen, but today, or actually not today, 10 years ago, 2010, our food impact on greenhouse gases, do you think it exceeded what the Earth was able to restore in 2010? Just our food.
Maybe, yeah.
It was about 102% of what the estimated impact of the Earth can restore. By 2050, that's going to be closer to 200%. So we're going to be way over the carbon footprint just based on our food resources and how we utilize that in our world. Why is that? Yeah, go ahead.
Curious.
Yeah.
Is that including food waste?
It's
or
food
just looking
waste,
at
yeah, it's
production?
all of it. Yeah. It's the production, the transport, the manufacturing to get the chemicals out there, and the waste. It's the whole source. And I mean, you probably guess which country has the highest load per capita. That's United States, where we do 4 times, so the studies, and we'll get into it a little bit more, we have a 4-time overconsumption of greenhouse gases compared to what we can if we want to sustain as our population grows. Population will probably stay stable around the year 2100 are the estimates, but it's going to continue to grow up to that point, so we got to prepare for that. So 34% of our greenhouse gases come from our food sources, from food production. How much comes from our medical waste?
How much did you say came from food?
34%. Think about this. Medical costs are about 19% of our GDP. And do you think medicine is a low carbon impact or a high carbon impact compared to other industries?
I'm gonna go with high.
It's a high. Yeah, it's about 32%.
Holy cow.
So you decrease medical usage and you decrease the greenhouse gases from your food. They both work together, and we'll talk about how they work together. You'll lower your personal footprint, but educate people and teach them and go, your choices make a difference. This is a really cool slide that kind of goes through the process of why do we want regenerative farming? Why is it important? Regenerative farming, what they're doing here, it's really, really critical. We can't continue to just deplete the soil. We need to start to nourish the earth back. The earth gave us a lot the last few hundred years that we've stripped, but we got to start to think about how can we sustain and continue to feed this growing population. So right now we're really kind of in the middle here, where there's more farms thinking about it and wanting to nourish the soil. Then there's a lot of people starting to advance the goals through education. There's a lot of YouTube people and the superstars of regenerative farming. That ultimate aim is going to be all farmers, hopefully, are thinking about that. So, you know, why, what's the science? Where is it important? Have you heard of the British Lancet, the journal? Is it a good journal? You think so? What's the impact factor? What's a good impact factor in your fields? 7?
7.
British Lancet's impact factor 202. It's a good journal. The H index is about 830 or something like that. It's a very high quality it is usually the top 2 or 3 ranked medical journals. You got the New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of American Medical Association, British Lancet, BMJ is another good one. But they are, in the last few years, have really skyrocketed because evidence-based medicine and the peer review process they go through. This was published a few years ago in the British Lancet. It's called Eat Lancet. They had defined 4 big areas. What do? We need to think about what's a global, sustainable reference diet that we should set for all cultures around the world. We should define what are those planetary boundaries. What can the planet deal with? How much can it regenerate? And then think about those global food systems to help model it, and then apply that and teach others about it. And the last part is come up with some strategies in the short term. And short term means the next 30 years, 2050, to feed a population of about 9.8 billion people, and continue to be able to feed as it grows to about 11 to 12 billion is where they're estimating the peak for humanity. Okay. So this was published in 2019 in February. I've presented it to doctors. No, I have never heard of it. Presented nutritionists. I haven't heard of it. The adoption of science is pretty slow. And it is a predominantly whole food, plant-based diet. It doesn't mean it's a completely plant-based. Still has some dairy. There's still a little bit of meat. If you look at it, 250 grams of dairy a day. How much is that in ounces? It's about 8 ounces. It's about 1 serving. For meat, including fish and other things, eggs, that's about 2 ounces a day. So it's really small portions of those if we want to continue to allow for humans to survive, really. I mean, this is a survival thing. We do not believe that we can continue that way unless we make these changes. But the largest portion, 50%, is fruits and vegetables. this spring there was a really good journal, a really good article, again in the Lancet, about what are the 3 foods that will increase your life the most. It's really 4 foods because they group two things together. But across the globe, these tend to be deficient. What do you think those are?
You're looking for a specific food?
Food groups.
Oh,
Food groups.
Okay.
See, the problem with global, it's very different, right? In the,
The what?
What's gonna be deficient in the US is not gonna be the same as what's gonna be deficient in different parts of the world. Right?
Somewhat, but it's actually fairly similar because so many people have adopted very similar diets to ours. That deficiency is fairly global for these 3 products.
Yeah.
Fruit.
Nope. Beans, legumes.
Legumes, yeah.
Legumes, nuts and seeds,
Oh, yeah.
and whole grains. Those 3 foods can add 12 years to your life if you eat enough. Those are fairly universally deficient in most cultures. We don't eat enough of them. There are some that probably are exceptions. We know about the blue zones. So, have you heard of blue zones? There's 5 cultures in the world that have more people who live to be 100 years old, and they rarely go to the doctor than any other place. Greece has a little community, Italy, Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, and Loma Linda, California. Those cultures have been studied for 70 years to determine what is it that they do. And so we know what they do. They eat a diet a lot like this. You know, I hear people go, oh, the Mediterranean diet. I'm gonna eat a bunch of cheese and I'm gonna eat fish all day and I can have this. That's not what they eat. They have like 1 to 2 ounces of fish once or twice a week. It's not a big part of their diet. Their diet, they go and forage. They have 20, 30 different types of greens that they regularly use in their diet. And they all garden and their community and how they approach their food. Their food isn't in a drive-through on their car on their way back or forth. It's a process. It's a ritual that they develop and they grow up in. You know, eating as a family is pretty rare today, unfortunately. We're losing it. So Eat Lancet is a really, really strong scientifically based approach to making sustainable diets around the world. There's a lot of political backlash to it because they're like, oh, well, we're not, that's going to destroy the economies in this way or that way. So it is something though that continues, the scientists and the Lancet, I don't believe we're going to be successful as a species if we can't make these changes. But you get into this stuff, and that's what I mean. You gotta pull back from it. You can't live in that and go, oh my gosh, it's hopeless. Hopefully we can provide a lot of hope and education and get people engaged and get them to make those changes. I started my practice because I wanted to get out and talk to patients and really say, this is what you need to do. Outside of just you. Your kids need to do it. Your parents should do it. Everybody should do it if you're worried about your health, but beyond your health if you're worried about the future. You know, have you heard of, like, Native Americans have this saying about how many you shouldn't make choices that affect how many generations in the future?
Three to 5.
Pretty close. Yeah. It's actually a laundry detergent named after it, 7th generation.
Okay.
They would say your choices should be beneficial 7 generations down the road, not destructive. It's a big ask, right? But that's why a lot of Native American cultures, like, we don't want to participate. We want to have our own thing and start to learn. But a lot of their history has been stripped, so they're having to relearn a lot of stuff. So we introduce that. So we've got to focus on ourselves and then think about how we can help and move things forward and have an impact. Why is that? How does stress impact you? Do any of you study microbiome? Stress impacts everything.
On molecular level.
Huh?
It changes your molecular makeup, right?
Yes. Yep. It changes every process in your body. Not everyone, but changed about 450 different ones significantly. It causes oxidative stress, but it also disrupts your microbiome pretty quickly. Okay. So stress isn't bad though. Stress is important. Do we have stress every day? When you have to wake up, that's a stressor. You got to eat, that's a stressor. You got to drink, you got to go to the restroom, you got to get ready. Those are stressors. But those stressors can be good. You can get here and build up and get into the kind of peak stage where you're in this creative performance, and that's where we hope you are, rather than getting exhausted and starting to drop your performance and then breaking down and burning out. But we're seeing burnout huge in all industries. I don't care what industry you talk about. So learning how to cope with stress, learning how to take care of yourself in just a few minutes a day achieves wonders.
I have that clicking noise.
Yeah.
It's been going the whole time.
It's the power.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the power. I just noticed what it was. At first I thought maybe a bug thing or something, but it looks like it's power. So if we lose power, that's okay. So stress though, in 7 to 10 minutes a day, if you practice some mindfulness, you will change your brain within 8 weeks. Physically change your brain. We see this on MRIs, functional MRIs. So we have these centers in our brain that show your resiliency to stressful situations. And by taking it in 7 to 10 minutes every day for 2 months, that center grows and your response to stress starts to decrease rapidly. Beyond that, people who do this start to see their performance and their efficiency increase by 20 to 30%. So if you could take that 8-hour day or that 16-hour day, your graduate students, I'm going to be realistic. Mine were, I was in residency once, those were very long days, but 16 hours and spend 10 minutes to improve your efficiency by 20 or 30%. That's going to give you a lot of time back. Mindfulness-based stress reduction has been studied for about 50 years. It's the most powerful tool you can use, and it only takes minutes. And you can do it doing any activity. What do you think mindfulness means? Being in the moment. Yeah. I think you were going to say something, Brian. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it means being present, being in the moment. So what are things that you could think of that you could be present in?
I think right now I keep thinking of my kids and I'm hearing them, but I really want to listen to them.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
you know.
So mind wandering is the opposite. So that's when you're distracted and you're thinking about the future or the past or what you have to do in that task list. That's called mind wandering. When we're awake, pre-iPhones, there was a study done what percentage of the time when we're awake are we mind wandering? It's about 48%. So we're thinking about other things 48% of the time. So how good does an hour-long lecture do? Unless it's engaging and it gets you into there and you're mindful of what's going on. If you're not present, there's a lot of distractions, right? So mindfulness is that practice and that engagement. You can do it. Dara did it during dinner. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were like, I'm eating this pizza, it's changing my life right now. That's a mindful, you can be mindful. I do this with medical students. We take a grape and we do a mindfulness session eating a grape. But we tell them, you don't know what this is. Look at it, smell it, look at the size, put it to your lips. It takes about 5 minutes to eat that one grape. And then think about that experience and how does it feel afterwards? I do this with patients who have foods that they put they eat the whole bag of, let's say. They just open the bag and eat the whole thing. I'm like, okay, let's eat that. I don't tell you to stop eating things, but let's put a few of them in a cup and be very mindful with each one. And by the third piece of that, you're probably going to be done with it because that experience will be finished. You're going to enjoy it so much more too by being mindful of what you're doing. So it's a really, really powerful, very strong, very quick way to improve your resiliency and reduce the risk of burnout and anxiety. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So how does it affect your body? I said gut. It affects everything. Increases your risk for every single disease, including if you get COVID. Your risk of having the worst infection. Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, cancer are all affected by malregulation because it affects your body's processes. If your body can't heal and repair because you're stressed, you put yourself up to be susceptible for more diseases. Now, why does one person's family get heart attacks and another's get cancer and another one gets autoimmune diseases? That's because of genetics. But the foundational root cause is very similar. Does that make sense? And it's not all stress. I mean, all these areas are very important, but I'm focusing on stress. So we want to come back to our baseline when we get anxious and overly stressed. And the reason is because it improves our ability to cope when we have new things that come up that are stressors. It also, when I have ongoing stress, like I said, Alzheimer's, but beyond that, just my ability to remember and learn new things. If I can't learn new things, my curiosity starts to go away, and I start to become very fixed and very stuck in certain boxes, and I'm afraid to go and advance and grow. And for me, that would be a really scary thing. I'd love to grow and be curious and learn. So this is adapted from Georgetown. And what was the gentleman, the
Gary?
previous director, Gary? Yeah.
Gary Limburg.
His son's at Georgetown now, but at medical school. But Georgetown University, Dr. Avi, he's the one who taught me mind-body medicine. He did the original research at Georgetown. It's been adopted by Cincinnati, and now IU School of Medicine is adopting it. We're in our 4th year of teaching it to the medical students and having them do that. It's the only elective medical students can have in their first 2 years because we feel it's so important, but it's not a requirement of medical education. We can't make it part of the curriculum yet. Hopefully we're doing enough research to show it's a requirement. So mind-body medicine techniques. Everybody's heard of meditation. You can do quick mindful meditations versus the traditional transcendental meditation, which takes months or years or decades to master, and it's a very long 45-minute meditation. Mindful meditations are usually a guided meditation. We'll do one of them this evening. Imagery. So you can just picture and imagine things, putting yourself in a place that's really special for you. For me, it's always the mountains with a lake nearby and probably some of my family, my brothers, my daughter, my son, somebody else. Autogenic training is in biofeedback are very similar to one another. So you can use a device to see how do you physiologically change. So if I do a mindful session and I tell myself I'm feeling warm, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling relaxed, and I have a thermometer on my finger for 7 minutes during that, my temperature will increase 8 or 9 degrees. What do you think stress does to your temperature in your skin? It goes down, yeah. Because your capillaries constrict. Your capillaries, it's fight or flight response. Your capillaries restrict because your organs need to work in case you need to run. That's the traditional human response to stress. But now we have this chronic stress. A lot of people, you'll shake their hands and they always got cold hands because they're stressed a lot of times. Sometimes it's thyroid or something else, but usually it's stress. Stress is the majority of that. Breathing techniques. So just taking 2 minutes to do concentrated breathing works as well as taking one of the stronger medicines for anxiety without the side effects. And that's an addictive medicine that a lot of people get hooked on too. Exercise, yoga, and Tai Chi or other types. And then group support. So engaging, having those relationships around you. Those are all mind-body medicine techniques that we can all adopt and practice. Got pictures. So, resiliency. Do you know what resiliency is? So the Earth's resiliency or your own resiliency? Our own personal resiliency is our ability to bounce back. I love it to like think of a rubber band. You can stretch it so far and then it's stuck and it either breaks or you got to start to bring it back, right? And so that rubber band has a lot of resilience, but the more you stretch it and keep it stretched, it comes back here. It gets lack, right? It starts to stretch out. It doesn't come back to the same center. So trying to not go so far out that you don't get back to your center is really, really important to think about. And this is the most important thing to prevent burnout. You know, we all do things we love, we're curious about, but if we get too involved in it and not have fun, go on these weekends, do things like that, we will get burned out. Doesn't matter what field you're in. So optimal nutrition, exercise, sleep, mindfulness-based stress reduction, compassion cultivation for yourself. We all make mistakes. We all fail at things. If you approach it in, I'm a failure, versus what can I learn from that? How can I change what I did to next time not fail and improve? Schedule your time. Schedule some time to spend with those people who are important for you. Schedule some time to exercise. Block your calendar off. The most successful people block time every week for themselves. And it looks like they're busy. It just says I'm unavailable, but it's because they're taking time to do what they need to keep themselves in check. keep healthy foods as accessible as possible. Talked about nuts and seeds. Those are easy. You can have them everywhere. Fruits and vegetables, for the most part, you can bring most places and keep them easily accessible to. Beans and whole grains might be a little bit harder, but having them at home so you can have them when you need a few times a day. And then taking those rest when you need them. And rest doesn't have to be sleep, but just letting your mind go. Do some relaxation. So how this works is you intentionally take time for yourself when you're mindful. Does anybody take time for themselves regularly for anything, like going to get a massage or get their nails done or going to exercise or do their hair?
Yep.
I see a couple heads, nods. Okay, good. So intentionally saying it's okay for me to do this, that compassion. It's okay for me not to be doing this project right now because I'm doing something for me. And it's okay to say this is the amount of time too. You don't need to have a free open amount saying for the next 15 minutes, this is in my schedule and I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick to it. And that allows us to not think about the future or the past or the list of things that we need to get done and just plug in to it. Now, an important thing though, and this took me a long time because I've been doing mindfulness for about 12 years. 46% of the time your mind wanders. So if you're doing an 8-minute session, your mind's gonna wander. And until I'd started mindfulness before I met Adi. And him and I were doing the training, and a lot of the other faculty, it was an IU School of Medicine faculty, they knew I was doing this with patients. This was new for them. And they were like, I can't believe, you know, some of them were like, I'm nervous being around you, Tim, and Adi. And I was like, me? He's the person who knows it. And I'm like, why are you nervous? And because my mind keeps wandering. I'm like, me too. If I can make it through 4 full breaths and not have my mind wander, I'm happy. That's a really good session. I can't make it 8 minutes, but it's getting back to going, all right, I wandered, that's okay. Let me come back and listen to what's going on. Forgive yourself, be compassionate, right? Don't beat yourself up when you're trying to help yourself. Just go, that's okay, I wandered for a few. My kids distracted me. So now I need to get back. There's different ways. Eating, I mentioned, laughter. Laughter therapy is really fun. That's the first thing I ever learned. Group of 500 physicians in a room, and Jim Gordon, great name, Jim Gordon, right? Batman. He's one of the leading researchers of mind-body medicine, and he goes around the world to refugee camps and does laughter medicine, laughter mind-body things. He does other things too with them, but that's his thing. He works through the Yale and Harvard Mind-Body Medicine Institute and travels when there's refugee crises. Shaking. What's a type of shaking that most of us probably do, but we might be embarrassed when we do it? Shaking.
Shake your legs.
I mean, I'm shaking my leg.
Outside of that though, yeah, outside of that. Just dancing, right? You really get into dancing, you're shaking your body.
Yeah.
You're shaking stuff, you know. You can do just shaking. You can just say, I'm gonna shake my arm and then this, do like the hokey pokey, you know. But dancing is a type of meditation. A lot of people, if they really dance and they're not self-conscious about it, you can be very mindful. And it's a great way if you like dance. I have a lot of students who are like, that's my favorite one. We all dance together. We start out shaking for like 3 minutes and then the music changes and we do a dance. And that's a thing. Body scan is just scanning your body. You know, so starting with your forehead, moving down, feeling your shoulders, seeing if you're tense or anything. Not changing it, just breathing and recognizing it. And going, right now my left shoulder is a little tense. That's okay. And you just move through your body, and then you move back up, and that's it. You just pay attention. Breathing, or anything, gardening, walking. Tomorrow, you'll do a sound walk. That's a way to be mindful just in nature. What Japanese call forest bathing, spending time in nature. Let's practice. Got a lot of options. Who's up for shaking meditation?
Shake it.
You gonna shake it?
Why not?
All right. All right, let me get some music going. That was the only one I heard. I threw the word out, so I might have biased the response. We could do a body scan too.
I'm up for
We
it.
could do the shaking.
Shake
Alicia
it.
spoke up, so we could do the
All right, let's do shake. Let me get something pulled up here.